Good morning, geeks. Are we sitting comfortably? Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name is Kevin, I am a geek, and you are watching Kevin the Geek. And it is time for another Doctor Who review. Welcome back if you are returning. If you're new, welcome to the channel. Please do subscribe on the channel. It is time for Series 2, Episode 3 review of School Reunion. There are 10 categories, each one gets a score out of 10 to give an overall score out of 100. Let's get into it. Now, the overall story did have its interests at time, but I think the story as a whole kind of got overshadowed, really, with, of course, the return of one of the early classic companions, Sarah Jane Smith, played wonderfully by Elizabeth Sladen. The look on the Doctor's face when Sarah Jane walks into the room is not the Doctor's face. That is David Tennant's face. Because he obviously grew up as a child watching Doctor Who at the time when the third and the fourth Doctors travelled with Sarah Jane Smith. And so the look on his face was his inner child seeing Sarah Jane. So with the introduction or reintroduction of Sarah Jane Smith, it just brought in a little bit of fresh energy, I think, to the episode. Although this is an episode that I really didn't care for Rose, because they tried to play on this whole almost like a lover's quarrel and jealousy between Sarah Jane and Rose, and trying to compare their travels with the Doctor. It brought up an interesting situation where it seemed to suggest that Rose would be with the Doctor forever, but he basically turns around and he says,
"Why not?"
I don't age. I regenerate. But humans decay. You wither and you die. Imagine watching that happen to someone that you...
What, Doctor?
You can spend the rest of your life with me. But I can't spend the rest of mine with you. I have to live on. Alone. That's the curse of the Time Lords.
and I think that's for a lot of the younger, newer viewers. This is probably the first time that this kind of gets put into perspective. And I do like that aspect of it. But yeah, just the constant bickering, I didn't really like it. Now, the villains of the piece, again, sort of took a little bit of a backseat. But what a wonderful choice in bringing in Anthony Head. He is a phenomenal actor. And so good at playing this really calculating character. And one of the best moments of possibly the entire series is that little interaction between David Tennant and Anthony Head when they're around the swimming pool. That is a fantastic scene. And it's verbal sparring, I like to call it, where they're each trying to get that little edge on the other. It's such an amazing little scene there. And of course, in this episode, you get the reintroduction of K9 in addition to Sarah Jane Smith, which again is a wonderful little cameo. Obviously, I think it's because of rights they can't really use K9 that much, which is why. I mean, not that I've watched a lot of it, but in Sarah Jane Smith Adventures, I don't think K9 really featured in the show that much. But great little addition. And I love the way that they use K9 to look at some of Mickey's insecurities in the episode, where he compares himself to the Tin Dog, where he compares himself to being the kind of general support behind the main kind of core team of the Doctor and his companion. This was another episode where you got a tiny little kind of almost retreading of the Doctor being a little bit mean towards Mickey when Mickey has the moment where he finds the rats in the cupboards. But it wasn't quite as mean as the Ninth Doctor was to him in the first season, which was a big relief, because I never really liked the way that they wrote that. But it was in that scene where they kind of introduced this kind of sparring between Rose and Sarah Jane, when Sarah Jane talks about using the rats in biology classes. And Rose snips back.
Are you from the Dark Ages?
Anyway, moving on.
So I wasn't very keen there. But overall, it was a fun little episode. You know, there wasn't a huge amount of substance to it in terms of the kind of general plot. The scene at the start of the episode where the Doctor's basically teaching a physics class, I thought that was quite amusing. I quite like that. And it was an interesting idea having the head teacher basically make the kids have free school lunches in order to make them cleverer. At first, it seemed like the kids only... There was only like the odd couple of kids, maybe, that were like really getting the enhanced intelligence, like the kid Milo right at the start of the episode. And then it seems like literally 2 days later, the entire school has gained enough knowledge to be able to finally crack the code that I think that they were going for. Which seems a little bit far-fetched, considering they've been in there a little while. But, yeah, I'm able to buy that. The ending of the episode with the whole blowing up of the school, that really felt like they've gone, okay, we're sending something in school. What is a child's dream? Because I think every child, or most children at some point or another, who have gone into school and they've maybe forgotten to do their homework or something, they've woken up in the morning and just dreamed, oh, I wish the school has blown up overnight, or, you know, the pipes are frozen, so they can't open the school, or something's flooded or whatever, to avoid maybe having to hand in their homework or whatever. Yeah, so that whole ending scene was like, oh my god, Kenny's blown up the school, yay! It was very silly, but I kind of enjoyed that, really. Now, I really love the music in this episode, the kind of chanting and kind of heavy-hitting music whenever the kids are doing that kind of scene where they're trying to break into the code. And it's something that I think, had it been in the first season, it would have been a bit too much. But I think by this point, I've said so many times, the balance of the music is getting a lot better. So that worked out really, really well. The set and the costumes is kind of the same as it always is. It's modern day. There's not a lot you can really say there. It was average in what you wanted to do. The special effects had its hit and miss moments. The actual Krillitane creatures themselves, they looked a little bit cartoonish when you got to see them, particularly in the daylight. When it was the nighttime shot, when it was near the moon, that wasn't too bad. And the brief moment that you saw when it was one underneath the table, again, not too bad. But in the daylight, they didn't look the best. And I wish that they had used them a little bit less, the bits in the school. But I mean, like, you have the bits with K9 and the shooting of the lasers. That looks good. That looks good in what it needs to do there. The supporting characters of the piece is something you can't really say too much with, because obviously you've got Mickey, and I think Mickey does do a good job in this one. And it's all playing up into just making him, you know, a bit of a companion. And I like what they were going for with him in trying to make him a little bit more important and wanting him to want to do more. Because obviously you had the situation at the end of the episode World War III, the Ninth Doctor invited Mickey to join the TARDIS crew. Whereas he didn't feel that he was capable of dealing with the life But as he's done more and more throughout the various episodes that you've seen him in, you can just see he's gaining in confidence a little bit more. And he would like to get a piece of that. And I think that's why he's quite happy to join the crew this time. I think one of the other greatest kind of pieces within this episode is a little bit of the dialogue between Rose and the Doctor. They've got a really nice kind of dynamic between them now. And they're able to have this good jokey humour, what some people may call banter. Particularly the scene when the Doctor's eating lunch and Rose comes over to him as a dinner lady. I quite like that. That was, you know, a nice little amusing scene. But I think the best dialogue really has to go to the Doctor and Sarah Jane. Obviously, one, the reintroduction between the pair of them, where they're in the the sports hall, the gym. That is a really lovely little scene there, and so carefully done. Because you don't really want to underestimate, for people who are fans of the classic, you don't really want to underestimate and underdeal the emotion of the when she left the Fourth Doctor. But then you also want to have something new, and you want to make it feel for the newer viewers that they do have a really deep history. Which, of course, I would have to say that when I first watched this, I hadn't seen Sarah. I knew who Sarah Jane was, but I hadn't really seen any episodes that she was in, so I didn't know much about her. So this was able to give me some idea of their relationship. But the biggest thing is when Mr. Finch tries to appeal to the Doctor to get him to help them crack the code to make him a god and to do all those things like bringing back the Time Lords. And you can see that the Doctor's really tempted in that moment. But ultimately, it's Sarah Jane who reminds him and convinces him.
No. Universe has to move forward. Pain and loss, they define us as much as happiness or love. Whether it's a world or a relationship, everything has its time, and everything ends.
So overall, it was a pretty damn good episode. Definitely not one of the best of the series, but definitely a great episode. But let's look at the scores for this episode. So, overall, School Reunion scores 73 marks out of 100, which makes it a B-rated episode. Like I said, this was a really fun little episode. Had some really nice moments, some pretty cheesy moments as well, I'm not going to lie. But some really nice moments, and some really heartfelt moments, I think. Yes, there are things I really didn't like. Like the biggest thing, like I said, is the whole stupid thing with the back and forth between Rose and Sarah Jane. I get it, but I still don't like it. But those are just my thoughts for this episode. What are your thoughts? Drop a comment down below, let me know, and remember to subscribe to the channel if you're new. But for now, my name's Kevin, I'm a geek, and you have been watching Kevin the Geek. Goodbye.